Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to part 2 of my Darksun review. Yeah, I finally got it in the mail. An interesting score. This is literally the box set, but in a nice, kick-ass hardcover book. I am 100% certain this was a drive-through printing, but I can't be 100% because there is no identifiers in the book. But it's literally got everything in here. The maps, the player and DM little spiral notebooky things, all in here. I got it for a pretty damn good price. And I actually kind of like it over the box set, just because not only is it all here. The only thing I don't like, obviously, is the maps having been cut down to fit in here. But I'm never going to really run Darksun as a campaign setting. I got this for a bunch of reasons, mostly to be able to go back and reread it and you know, mine it for ideas. And I'll get into that hopefully today. If not, I'm going to do a couple more parts to this series. But you know, I wanted to, you know, double check and make sure it was something that was or wasn't up my alley. And despite it not being my particular cup of tea, because of just the subliminal and often overt themes that are in the book, I'm not a big fan of the no metal. We're going to use bone and sticks and rocks and stuff instead of, you know, any sort of technological advancements, you know, that I'm familiar with. Obviously, there were innovations with other, you know, mediums, you know, obsidian and rock and bone and things like that. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a sword and sandals fan when it comes to role playing. Reading, give me a couple of Conan books, I'm set for the weekend. But to actually play it and get that immersed into it, it's not really what I'm looking for when I'm a gamer. As you guys mostly know, I'm actually more of a sci-fi gamer fan. No surprise there. So, but it does have a lot of things to offer in the way of not just the obvious enthusiasm that it has for itself in trying to promote this idea, and, you know, its long-lived status, and all the supplements and all the work that went into it. In addition to the sort of challenging play level that's required to play a Darksun character or campaign, it's definitely next level compared to a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons that came before it. It's definitely not for the timid, not for the weak. Those are all things that I want to see how they did it. And like I was joking with someone a while ago, this is a big, huge compendium for me of things I'm never going to do in my own game when it comes to world setting and other things that I'll probably get into. But don't take that as an I don't like it. I like it a lot because I could see how other people would. This would be their absolute, you know, favorite campaign setting. You know, Dune fans, Tatooine fans, John Carter fans. There's a whole lot of similarities. Me personally, though, I'd rather make up my own world and mine what I can out of here. And don't even think for a second I'm not going to steal hundreds and hundreds of ideas out of this particular. Well, let's call it a book for now. This book, I'm gonna mine it until I get to the very last page. Probably go back and read it again. I've only made it through the first 50 or so pages, and, you know, there's some things in there I really dig. There's a whole bunch of things that I can't stand, and I'm going to go into a lot of that right now. I'm only going to go through what I've already read, because that's only fair. You know, I went over some stuff in the review of the, you know, micronized version that we have of the box set. That's more of just a curiosity and you know, just a weird collector item. But I got this from a nice group of people on eBay, and they sent me along a free Dungeons and Dragons postcard from the Tomb of Horrors, which, you know, what the heck, I'll put that away somewhere. And I don't know why they gave me this sheet of TSR with the old TSR logo and address and stuff like that. It's weird, but okay, thanks, guys. I forget the name of the YouTube, or excuse me, the eBay store that I bought it from. I'll try to go down and look it up and give them some credit, but I usually don't do that on my first purchase. They did a great job. Got it to me in about 4 days, free shipping, and it cost them like $7 to send it. They packed it really well, so I'll try to put their store name in the description. But I know nobody's going to go and check them out. Nobody's going to care. So if I forget and you actually care, please let me know. But for the most part, I want to get into just the basics that I've covered so far, having read it. The player races, you've got elf and dwarf. For the most part, a lot of the same stuff, but then comes the part I hate, where they chopped off their life expectancy, making it literally almost no different than humans, and that to me is weak sauce. If you can't handle the fact that they're going to live a long time, and you just want to cut it down like second edition did, you can kind of piss off. You don't have what it takes to run a campaign like that, or use those kinds of details, and they're too scary for you. I don't want my characters living 2,000 or 3,000 years. Why not? Like, they're going to live that far. They're probably going to get slaughtered in the first 5 levels of play. So what are you worrying about? Okay? Now, if they get there, cool. And let's be honest, every version of Dungeons & Dragons had some sort of way of knocking off years off your character's life so they could keep on playing. If they've earned it, why retire them because you want to do something different? Well, maybe hand off that game to somebody else, because you're losing your ability to continue the game. Hand it off to somebody else. I'm certain there's somebody within your group who would love to take over when you go, oh, I can't handle it. You guys are too powerful. I guarantee that's really not the case, and you're just really looking for an excuse to play another game, or maybe the challenge is hard for you. I would suggest going back, checking out your monster manuals, and looking at different things a different way, and look for a way to challenge them. Or even, remember that it's not just combat that's a challenge. There's other things that can challenge the party. Half-elf, same thing, no big difference, other than the age lopping off of years. It's pretty much standard. Even though it's second edition, most of the stuff is pretty similar to the same as original AD&D or second edition. Half giants, kind of a neat, interesting thing. To me, it would be better if they would have just used the half ogre, because that just makes more sense. Half giants, considering that they're literally a magically created breed of creature that can only interbreed with themselves. Why you call them half giant? That give them something else, and say in the description that they are essentially this, because they're not going to walk around calling themselves half giants. That's just like half elf. I'm a half elf. No, my parents were so and so, and one of them was elf, one was a human. I don't call myself a half Irishman. Okay, that whole concept is just kind of 80s and needs to be done away with. They would call themselves something else. The weird thing about them is their alignment changes every day, and to me that's just, you couldn't have come up with something more unique or different than that. So basically they never actually have the same opinion from day to day. That's kind of just loony. So basically I think they pick between good, evil, law, and chaos, and then every day they switch from one of the, they'll keep like the lawful part, but then they'll be good, neutral, or evil. The next day, maybe one day they're lawful good, one day they're lawful neutral, one day they're lawful evil. I could be wrong in the exact makeup of the alignment, but the idea of switching alignments and basically potentially becoming the opposite of what they were the day before doesn't make any sense. To me, that sounds like a form of insanity, but I could be wrong. The halflings are not halflings. They can call them halflings, but they're cannibalistic, kind of like pygmies of the desert. Yeah, they live mostly in jungles and what have you, but they're the planet's pygmies, and they're tough. They're not like evil or anything like that. I suppose they could be, but they're just the fact that they're kind of sort of native, sort of jungle dwelling, not very technologically advanced, very clan based. They stick together, that sort of thing. I've got no problem with it. The cannibalistic nature. I mean, if any race in old D&D was going to go cannibalistic, from being forced to live in this desert hellhole that is Athos, I think that's what it's called, Darksun, it would be the hobbits. They need their 8-9 square meals a day, and if things start looking grim, they're going to start looking to the biggins, the big folk, the dwarves, the elves, anything they can get. So the humor is not lost on me. Then there were the moles, which I think I honestly don't remember what they were. Let me look real quick. Oh, it's a crossbreed between a human and a dwarf. Okay, why? I can think of all kinds of snuggle struggle reasons why that might happen, but that's about it. And I'm not really a fan. Just okay, you could make up your mind whether you wanted to be a human or a dwarf. You want some mixed sort of bonuses between the two. Okay, I can see them being either really, really popular amongst a certain demographic or not really all that popular at all. Humans, really no different than they are anywhere else. The same as it ever was, so to speak. Obviously the game has always been a little, overly human-centric, which not a fan of. If I wanted to do that, I would probably play other games that, the setting, that's all there is. But so many people want to play something completely different than themselves. That's the whole nature of the role-playing game. You're not playing yourself, although playing oneself, and I have done so in several RPGs, is actually kind of fun and liberating at the same time. But the basic premise of role-playing is to play someone else. So why are you going to limit that unless you've got some pretty good reasons, and obviously certain settings or certain games that is in fact the case. Okay, if that's what you guys have all agreed to do this particular gaming session, more power to you. Your game, your way. You're welcome, Bo. Go and enjoy the hell out of whatever it is you plan on doing for that game session. Then come my favorite, and mind you, this is because I've always been a huge Arduin Fraint fan. Try saying that 3 times fast. And anyone trying to deny any sort of Arduin influence from the Fraints into the 3-creen just doesn't know their history of the gaming world. Sure, somebody could have come up with it without ever having heard of a Fraint or seen an Arduin book, but the chances are, considering when the book was written and what was going on at the time, pretty slim to none. They were 7-foot tall, 4-armed humanoid insects. The second pair of arms is unique to them as opposed to the Fraints. They're still actually a lot of fun. I've played several over the years, and not just in Darksun. Their weapon choices, I love that that sort of throwing weapon that was kind of like a ninja star but made out of like chipped obsidian or some such. They're not needing to sleep, and the other characteristics that they had, all a lot of fun if you want to run something very, very alien. Of just a fun way to to get out of your own skin and play something vastly different. Next, I'm going to go into the player character classes. Warrior, obviously, whatever needs to be said has been said 100 times before me about warriors in any kind of fantasy situation. But then they had the gladiator, which was, definitely something needed. I thought they were a little bit overpowered in the weapon proficiency department, but I suppose I could also see some of their ideas being justified by constant daily life or death struggles and needing to know how to use pretty much every weapon in the book. The clerics, which were the Templars and Druids, same thing, obviously playing at a severe disadvantage in this particular game, but could be a lot of fun to try to re-terraform the planet and bring it back to normal. The fact that there are no gods in this game, not a fan of that at all. Despite my own religion, I get that this is a game where you need a lot of things that the clerics always brought to the table. So seeing that they're not going to do that, and the Templars being their replacement, being I believe some sort of like elemental type priest, where the 4 elements are the replacement for the gods, being that this world is sort of locked away from all the other worlds, although I did sort of find some ways to sneak in and out, which should exist, just encapsulating it in some sort of impenetrable bubble that nobody can come and go from. Just seems like a very limited, hopeless situation for the characters, because once they get to a certain point, it's just a matter of death. Rogues, having the regular rogue and the bard being a little bit better in this version than in second edition, that being the bard. The rogue, obviously there's going to be a crap ton of rogues, thieves, scoundrels of all sorts and sizes. Obviously, you're going to need them. They're probably going to be one of the more popular professions in a world like this. The psionicist, love it. I love the fact that everybody in the game has some psionics. That's actually one of the few things that I'm really surprised pleasantly so about this particular setting, that they're going to embrace it. Unfortunately, they do kind of want you to go out and buy the Psionics Handbook, Splat Book, which I happen to already have, and wasn't really a big fan of the way they did psionics. I'd rather actually use the first edition psionic rules, modify them a little to make sure that it works within this particular setting if I was to use it. But it's still a usable system, obviously watered down like everything in second edition was. Don't even get me started on only a 10-die fireball, that's the max. No thanks. Who doesn't want to throw a 15 or 18-die fireball, right? More dice, more damage. It just makes for more fun, in my opinion. Obviously, it can get out of hand, but you got to take the good with the bad. Now, like I mentioned before, one of the things in the game that is also a little bit unique to the game is that everybody starts out at 3rd level, unless you're making like a multi-class non-human. They get to start at 3rd level, or the equivalent XP, and divided between the multiple classes. It kind of I like it for a lot of reasons. The front loading of characters is something I prefer. Makes them stronger to begin with, allows you to turn up the challenge rating, so to speak, a little higher at the beginning, and not worry so much about them dying from the very first time they take a single damage die against them, because a 3, 4, 5, 6 hit point magic user is virtually nothing but an experience point sponge for so many levels, and other characters as well. There's also a ranger character class, which also I could see being interesting to play at the very least. I know a bit about tracking, so the idea of being able to track through sand and what have you, that's a pretty big challenge. And now, of course, Omen, corrected me for my missing out on the two distinct types of magic user, the Defiler and the Preserver. The Defiler being the magic user that doesn't give a rat's about the fact that every time he casts a spell, he's draining life out of everything around him. Sounds fun if you want to, be kind of a jerk and, really want to be that power hungry magic abuser in the game. And, if your fellow players are, up for the challenge of every time you cast a spell, they're going to, potentially get zapped by it as well. Cool. Then there's the tree-hugging Preserver that's trying to reverse all the damage caused by the Defilers. Also, makes sense for, the goodly magic user to have that sort of mindset, your eco warrior, your climate change extremist, whatever. It could be very fun and funny to play that kind of character. Go for it. Enjoy. The Illusionist is also a possibility. I've never been a huge fan of Illusionists. I get it that they can get pretty gnarly later on, but so can a regular magic user. And limiting oneself to one school was never really my bag. It was so hard to be able to get spells in most games that I played in that, sometimes it felt like the DM was already pushing you into only one school because he wasn't letting you have the cool spells. So railing against that has always been, right up my alley. Seeing if I missed anything. The Rogue Bard. Bard's use of poison is kind of weird. Basically it's like they took the old assassin and the thief and sort of mixed them and threw in, a magical instrument or a musical instrument or two. Kind of a weird, take on it, but what the heck? There's a goodly amount of multi-class options for your non-humans, including psionics, which I mentioned, but the fact that any character race can be pretty much unlimited in psionics, I found to be kind of a little too generous. To be honest, I can see how certain races just might not have what it takes, but they decided to go the exact opposite route. I think in order to push the sales of the Psionics Handbook more than anything else. One thing that they did in here that I'm not really a huge fan of was this thing they call a character tree, where it forces you to roll up 4 characters for each player, and you rotate those characters, more or less how you see fit, but obviously in anticipation of you probably losing 2 or 3 of them before you actually get very far into the campaign. And just, that whole funnel sort of thing. If I know I'm going to, probably lose the first couple of characters I'm playing, it really takes a lot of the speed and the wind out of my sails of my enjoyment of the game, knowing that, more than likely my least favorite character is going to be the one that's going to survive the funnel to get to go on. Because like if I lose a character, I'm probably going to roll up a very similar character to the last character, because everybody else in the party, they're already pretty set, right? The fighter's still alive, the cleric's still alive, maybe my thief or magic user died. Well, they don't really need another fighter, they don't really need another cleric. Maybe I'll run a druid, or maybe a little bit different magic user, or maybe an assassin instead of a thief. But you kind of want to fill the 4 food groups, and if one particular food group keeps dying, you still need that particular character, especially if it is like a cleric or a magic user. Obviously you can have plenty of fighters and it's never going to be a huge deal, but if you're like the cleric or the magic user and that particular profession or class or what have you keeps dying, you need to just do better with the next one, as opposed to go, oh, I guess we're not going to have a cleric, because that's just kind of suicidal for the whole party. There's a small section in here on alignment when it comes to specifically desperate times and water, and what each alignment would do when the water starts running dry and they're running out of water. I think it was kind of a wasted page for the most part. We all kind of know how a lawful good character is going to act when it comes to getting short on water. When you're completely out, people go crazy, and the rule in that page where when that starts to happen, everybody pretty much turns chaotic evil. Yeah, that's kind of what happens when resources are down, and it's kind of what the bad guys, have intended, for things. You guys know. I don't want to get off on that tangent. New proficiencies: bargain, heat protection, psionic detection, sign language, water finding, bureaucracy, semantic concealment, armor optimization, weapon improvisation, and semantic concealment. Oh, that's double for priest and magic users. All actually very, very cool proficiencies that should have been in previous books. The ability to, speak sign language, great. The ability to cast your spells without using your hands. That's one of my new favorite proficiencies. How many times have you had your character get hit by a giant net or spider webs or something like that, and your hands are all, and you can't cast a spell except verbal components? Excuse me, guys. Somebody wants in. I don't know why, but get out of here. But for the most part, that's about it as far as I've read up to. I can go into their version of money later. It's kind of boring. You're going to have your own system for money, and I didn't find anything in that section that was overly enjoyable. Poverty, cheap DMs, tightwads. Not a fan of that. Give your players some treasure. If you can't find a way to get them to spend it, or if even them having it is such an issue that you don't want them to have it, then you're going to find your players, more often than not getting tired of that particular game, unless they're gluttons for punishment. Masochistic behaviors is very unattractive. I want to give out treasure. I want to receive treasure. When it comes to the game, that's, the number one reward for a lot of players. Not saying it's the ultimate and best reward and that's all people should seek, but when you were younger, that's what it was, and a lot of people never grew out of that. A lot of people have every right to want to go out and find treasure. People do that today. There are actual treasure hunters out there, and at the end of the day, they can appreciate, it's not the destination, it's the journey kind of mentality. But at the end of the day, if they didn't, pull up some gold coins from Oak Island, it wasn't a good day. The same with player characters. If they don't get to walk home with big old bags with big giant money symbols on them, walking out of the dungeon, it's probably not, going to be all that memorable a situation, not that enjoyable. Give your players some damn money. Give them some treasure. Give them some magic items. And then, later on you can take them away when you throw them in jail. We'll be talking about that maybe next week. But until next time, folks, go out and have some fun. If Darksun's your bag, if you're really digging on it, let me know. Let me know why. I'm going to continue reading it and mining it for all the good stuff, and discarding the stuff that I don't like, because that's what we do. That's why we review these products. That's why we try these new games, to ultimately fashion and craft our own perfect gaming fantasy world, sci-fi world. And trust me, that's a never-ending quest, which I am really, really happy to be on. Until next time, folks, happy trails.